Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests today.
The question for today, guys, is how do we help others overcome that fear of failure? And give me an example of maybe how you've done it yourself. And so, Scott Sadler, welcome to the show. Um, Several decades of executive coaching under this guy's belt. We're glad to have you. Take it away.
I had a hard time picking one of my failures over all the life of entrepreneurship I've had. I've been in business in some sort of business since 1989, so I've had lots of opportunities to fail and fail forward. I recognize that it's failing forward only now, not that I'm not in the middle of failure. It's hard to recognize that it's a fail forward when you're in the middle of it. I think that for me, I really focus on helping people reframe that failure as growth. And the rearview mirror is a great teacher. But when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to see that this is a good thing. And you've got to have the mindset that you're learning from it and you're going to be better from it. And I think that grit is a real important quality when you're facing failure and helping others to learn to have grit when failure will come, because it will come in some way, shape, or form, minor or major. So being prepared for that is really important. I think that today I'll choose a failed restaurant that I had. We started a restaurant. I started in hospitality when I was young and thought I still had the chops. And I made some mistakes. I really made some big mistakes in my business plan. And then the recession happened. And so it really magnified those mistakes to a huge extent. And so one thing that I learned is that I didn't want to be in the restaurant business. I didn't ever want to be in the restaurant business, honestly. But it was a thing that I did that I thought I was going to be great at, and I wasn't. And I went back to my coaching practice. I went back to full time, what I really was passionate about. So that failure put me back on track for what I think is my life's journey, my soul work. And I think that work should be an action of love. And so that restaurant was not an action of love. It was a sidetrack to teach me that I needed to stay on track with what I originally knew was my passion. So setting those incremental goals was really important to get out of the fear of failure. But it really was important for me to go through that. And it made me a better person. It allows me to relate to people who are going through it currently.
Yeah, so mine actually was fairly recently. I'd say back in 2019, after being with the same organization for over 20 years and being a leader in that organization, a manager in that organization for a big chunk of that. I, I started to lose my feel for being a leader, right? I just saw myself as this person in this organization for 20 plus years. I know what I'm doing. I'm good at what I do. But I started losing the whole mentoring, coaching aspect of it, right? What I really liked about the job. And then, well, things were changing. My job was going away. I was given the choice of, well, go to Panama or leave. So I didn't want to go to Panama. I did have a severance package, but it took that time to really think about what was going on. COVID had hit at the same time. So it was a little difficult to find a job. So I took a lot of time to really think about what I wanted. Um, so I got involved with a trucking company. And I have to say it was probably one of the worst experiences of my life because again, I went in there cocky, thinking that I could
Yeah.
go in there and I could do things the way that I wanted to do them. And I realized that what I didn't want to do was just be a manager, right? I missed the coaching and seeing other people be successful, right? I mean, my success is driven by other people's success. I'll just call it what it is. So I had the opportunity to come down here to Florida, work with my friends. Kind of, it's not an upstart, but it's rebuilding an organization. And it's interesting you asked this topic today because I'm sitting here with a young guy whose first day of work was on Tuesday with us, and sitting and having conversations with him, and just the feeling that I'm getting listening to this young man's changes in his own life and in mine as well. And he, this guy was on yachts. He was a deckhand on yachts for the last 4 years. So he's coming back landside, and his fear of coming back into an industry landside where he's been out, kind of been his own person for the last 4 years, and just sitting and having the conversations with him and realizing that he's kind of going through the same thing that I did, rebuilding and restarting. And yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a failure. It's just been a whole learning experience, and being able to see, just to share my experiences with somebody else and see their excitement about it and regenerate my own excitement about it, bro.
Yeah. And like you said, dipping into your experience of things that maybe didn't go quite the way you thought they were going to, but able to shine some light on that for others. I love it. Scott Aaron.
Well, I'm going to start with my learning lesson. I don't like to quantify or clarify things as failures because they're just learning lessons. And I had, I've been in entrepreneurship since 1999, since I was 19 years old. So that's all I know. It's more than half my life. I'll be 46 this year. And for me, I've had businesses where I've made millions, and I've had businesses where I've lost millions. And 2016, I had to file for personal bankruptcy to get out of one of the businesses that was literally bleeding me dry. Thankfully, I had launched my coaching and consulting practice 3 years prior, so I had revenue to fall back on. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, man, like, that's a big failure. And I didn't see it like I didn't fail. I actually saw that as a victory, because if I would have continued to try to drag that business around, it would have dragged me down with it. And I saw that as an opportunity. And I remember after my bankruptcy was approved by the courts, I was walking down the hallway with my lawyer, and he puts his arm around me and he said, now go live your life. And it was one of the most freeing experiences for me, because I learned a very important concept: to live in the solution and not in the problem. Because there's so many people that live in the problem of what is and what could be. But if you break down the fear of failure, it's a story, right? It's the fear of potentially something happening. Eckhart Tolle says it, there's three types of people, right? There's people that fear the future, there's people that fear the past, and those are people that are thinking about what hasn't happened yet, or thinking about what's already happened. You can't change it, but then you want to live in peace, because the only time that you can control is right now. So whenever someone says, well, I'm fearful of this, what if this happens? And I'll use my wife for an example, right? She says, what if? Like, whenever someone starts a story with a sentence with what if, it's a made up thing, right? Because it's what if this happened. It's not definitely going to happen. It could happen. So I always challenge people, okay, what if that happens? Do you know that for certain that it's going to happen, or are you telling yourself it could happen? And if you're telling yourself that could happen, it's a story. You have to reframe it. Now, I'll finish with this. No successful business owner on the face of this planet ever in this world's history has ever batted 1,000.
That's right.
They have
That's
struck
right.
out in some way, shape, or form. Just quoting Jim Rohn, he always, before he passed, he would always talk about how the highest paid baseball players in the world are the ones that bat over 300. And he said, if you think about that, when people hear that, they're like, oh my God, this person bats 300. Well, that same person that is getting 3 hits out of every 10 at bats is also getting out 7 times out of every 10 at bats.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is
Right.
reframing and realizing it. The successes that we want, the things that we want to accomplish, are on the other side of failure, because you have to learn from them in order to grow from them.
Damn.
Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making in their businesses, their personal lives, communities, and be sure to hop over to our YouTube channel to watch the full version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You can find all of our links in the caption. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 Eastern for all new episodes.